Hello and welcome to the First Impressions Podcast. This is the official podcast for the Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams. Please join us for the 36th Annual FIRST Conference this summer in Fukuoka, Japan, June 9th through 14th, 2024. For more information, please visit first.org. And now we join the interview in progress.
Hello and welcome to the FIRST podcast. My name is Christian Riley and I'm joined by my co-host Martin McKeay.
Hi.
This time on the show we're lucky enough to be talking to Megan Sanford, VP Chief Product Security Officer, Schneider Electric Energy Management Division. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Chris, and nice to meet both you and Martin today. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, I'm glad to see we've already discovered that you have a sense of humor. The listeners don't need to know that.
The outtakes would be highly entertaining. This is the fifth time we've done the introduction. I'm sure we'll get it right eventually.
No problem at all. As you can tell, I'm very serious all the time. No sense of humor.
Well, with that in mind, you're going to be keynoting at the upcoming FIRST conference in Japan. Maybe you can give a quick introduction about what you're doing, what your role is, and what you're going to be presenting very broadly at the conference.
Absolutely. So first off, a little bit joke there. I've never been to Japan, so I'm super excited. I was very thankful when FIRST obviously invited me to do the keynote. In my day-to-day job supporting Schneider Electric, I'm very passionate and have been for over a decade around product security. When I talk about product security, I'm talking about what's needed in defining an overall strategy for your products, your solutions, and your services that you take to market. The secure development lifecycle that should be considered when you're building secure products, solutions, and services that you provide for your customers, as well as the security features that should be included in these products, solutions, and services. So many people, when they look at product security, they're just like, oh, that's the SDL folks, that's vulnerability management, that's threat modeling, that's pen testing all day long, and it absolutely is. But the other super interesting part of it that I think people miss a lot is it's also security features. So that, again, is what is baked into the product to make it more resilient over its lifetime, to provide protection for the customer that is secure by design. And so it's working a lot with offer management. It's working a lot with the business strategy. So it's a lot more than kind of the traditional security work that you see on the enterprise side. And I love working on the enterprise side as well. But in my mind, product is where it's at, and it's really the go-to-market strategy. And for many companies like Schneider Electric, it's the differentiator. It's how we want to be seen as being best in class for the products and the solutions that we build and provide to our customers. So that's my product security role.
Well, that's an uphill battle no matter where you are in security, isn't it, Megan? I mean, ICS is the organization that you're going to be talking about, but anywhere, whether it's product or the ICS side, I see that it's just trying to get built that sort of security mindset built into things from the very start. So it's a long life cycle type of project.
Absolutely. And you're exactly right. And it involves anything from speccing in the right level of security that every product and solution should have. And to your point, it is lifecycle management. It's also about the secure deployment of our solutions at customer sites. It's about taking care of the customer after the fact and patching and managing vulnerabilities, as well just being there for the customer in the event that they have an incident or something happens at their site. You know, this is really the job of OEMs, is to be a trusted partner, not just when we ship and deliver the product to you, but throughout the duration of that product's life cycle, which, as you know, for industrial control systems and operational technology products, this can be 5, 10, 15. Some of these products have probably been in the field for 30 plus years now. So it runs all the way from specification to ultimately decommissioning of that product.
Now, I can imagine that dealing with a multitude of different customers, you're in that situation where you're dealing with different processes, you're dealing with different levels of knowledge on their side, and trying to interact with their processes at a time where there may be heightened concerns, I would say. And I know in your keynote talking about ICS for ICS, one of those points was interchangeable processes and being able to come up with more of a process where you can drop in without necessarily having to learn entirely new incident handling, incident response systems.
Entirely. So, and that's a great segue into the discussion on what is ICS for ICS. So it stands for Incident Command System for Industrial Control Systems. And the backstory on this is that I actually started my career doing more critical infrastructure protection and traditional emergency management work. So think guns, guards, gates, responding to hurricanes, hardening physical assets, doing physical security site assessments of infrastructures, and then working with owners and operators to recommend and inform how they can harden these physical assets. So I learned National Incident Management System, Incident Command System, NIMS ICS. It was invented in the United States in the 1970s in response to the wildfires that were occurring in California, where they needed to bring in firefighters and personnel from different localities in California, as well as first responders from out of state.
I
So they
remember
realized,
those fires.
yes, so they realized quickly that they needed to type their resources, number one. So a firefighter type one, which is kind of the highest level of sophistication, the highest level of certification and experience, someone from Oregon or someone from the Commonwealth of Virginia that was a firefighter, if these assets could be typed so that a type 1 in Virginia meant the same qualifications and the same level of experience as a firefighter in California, this would enable them to share resources through mutual aid. And it would also allow them to have a common framework for roles and positions, as well as the way that basic response plans were being structured, so that you can be a firefighter in Virginia and you can work in California and vice versa. Since then, Incident Command System has actually scaled to most Western countries that do emergency management. So think of the UK, think of Australia, think of most of Western Europe. They've all been following Incident Command System now. So it's not only just a US construct at this point, it's something that is used globally by first responders to successfully respond to host of natural disasters, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, space weather, you name it. And cyber, coincidentally, out of the 9 federally recognized disaster types in the United States, cyber is the only one currently not following Incident Command System. And I have a hypothesis. I've had this idea floating for a while that as cyber responders, we are first responders. We are very much alike fire, paramedics, and others in that we deal in disaster science. We just don't know, or we haven't formally recognized ourselves as a true disaster science in the way that we really are.
Well, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, which is that getting some manager of a bank who runs, or I should say VP at a bank who runs the cybersecurity system that is 5 levels down, doesn't understand that really is a disaster response effort, even if it looks like it's just another IT effort.
That's exactly right. And it becomes really, really critical in situations where, we're all familiar with the cyber threats out there. We're all familiar with APTs and the critical infrastructures that they're going after and why they're going after them. And to date, we've seen a lot of probing within the networks. We know that APTs and hackers can get in. Many people have said, well, we really haven't seen too much on the kinetic cyber physical side, thankfully yet, knock on wood. But we know that the capability is certainly there. So we don't want to wake up one day and find ourselves in a situation where a cyber attack occurs in the United States that is successfully executed in an operational technology environment, and say it causes an explosion or a fire or some other type of physical damage that endangers people and lives and processes, and then the cascading impacts from one asset going down, what does it do to the supply chain system? I mean, think of the situation with Colonial that they dealt with. This is really what ICS for ICS is tailored for, is where you have that unified command, the concept of having a cyber incident commander as well as a physical incident commander to resolve the physical sides and the aftermath of an incident, as well as the cyber concerns that may be present as well.
I can imagine this being very helpful for large scale issues that cover multiple different continents, multiple different companies, things that you're dealing with follow the sun, but maybe also you're dealing with that across multiple different companies. Bringing those companies together with a centralized way of communicating and managing those kind of incidents sounds like a win across the board.
Absolutely. And, if you've ever had the joy of being part of responding to a cyber incident, I think that we're generally getting better. But what I still see a lot of, and I've talked about this in other presentations, is say an incident or a notification comes in, something has happened, an event has happened. Normally a conference call is stood up where many people get on the call. They're trying to figure out what's going on. It's normally the same person that has scheduled the call, is directing the actions of the call, is doing the meeting minutes, is sending out the tasks that need to be completed. It's one person performing the role of, through incident command structure, what we would call the incident commander, the ops section chief, which is directing hand-on keyboard resources to respond to the incident and do DFIR and figure out what happened, and ultimately do backup and restore, or whatever is needed to get the asset back online and continue the forensic investigation. But they're also acting as the planning section chief, which is writing the incident action plan, sending out the directives. So you've got one person performing the role of incident commander, leading the incident, then ops section chief directing assets that are hand on keyboard, and then planning section chief, which is, again, sending out the executive summaries, getting everybody informed, collecting cyber intel. No one person should be on the hook for doing this job. So what I'm suggesting is that we don't throw away our existing incident response plans. No. What we do is we adopt incident command system, and we take the roles that we currently have, like incident owner or incident handler. There's many different terms that are used throughout our industry, and we retitle them to match what is followed in incident command system. And we take our very long incident response plans, which in some cases I've seen some upwards of 200 pages, we make them more modular. And how we do this is through following the FEMA model of having a basic plan that generally outlines how your organization is prepared to respond to any event. These are the teams and the functions that we have involved. These are our capabilities. This is how they're trained. This is how they exercise together. These are the tools that they need to successfully operate an incident all the way through recovery. And we outline those things in the basic plan. Where things get interesting is you could have a malware or a ransomware appendix to your basic plan that says, yes, we have the basic plan and all annexes and appendices build off of what's in the basic plan. But whenever there's a new threat that comes around that maybe we hadn't anticipated before, we don't go back and manually write that into a 200-page plan somewhere. We go and we define a separate appendix that gives specific instruction for how we handle ransomware, for delegations of authority, for different considerations that should be included in the plan, to include, a communications appendix. You think of the role of a public information officer. Well, guess what? That PIO can work internally within an organization to proactively identify what are the top 5 most likely threats our organization is willing to face. Definitely everyone should have a ransomware communications appendix at this point, but all of your holding statements and things that you want to proactively communicate when you're in an incident, they're already pre-scripted, they're already reviewed by legal, and you have that in your back pocket to tailor versus having to do everything on the fly without templates. And so incident command system, that's just one example with a PIO and a comms appendix. Incident command system gives you so many great tools right out of the box that you can pick up and use within your existing incident response plan.
Megan, I think you are going to meet with a very receptive audience in Fukuoka. I think that, people will hear your message and have a lot of both feedback and sympathy for it. We have a couple minutes, but what is one last thought you would like to leave us with? What haven't Chris and I asked you about? What would you like to tell people about your keynote and why they should be there?
I think that we have the opportunity to change the way that cyber incident response is done globally at scale. I think that we're at a turning point where we can decide for ourselves if we want to align more closely with the first responders on the physical side of the house that have done this for 50 years. I definitely think that we should. I think that it's a tremendous opportunity. I don't think that it would take much for this community to rally around it. There's online FEMA training that's free. We can do this. People can take action on this right now. Today they can start. And so my desire in speaking at the conference is really to hopefully incite our incident response community to call to action, to take the training, to become familiar with incident command system, because I think the application of it will save lives. It will absolutely save lives in the future with the threats that we're seeing, and it's time to do it, and we certainly can.
And if people listening to the podcast want to find more about ICS for ICS, there's a website, I believe, ics4ics.org.
Yes.
Is that the best resource?
Yes, and everything's free. So you'll find templates on there that we've written for planning section chief, incident commander, job aids, how to run tabletop exercises. All of these are templates that we have. Thank you so much to FEMA. We have adapted directly from FEMA in many cases, not trying to change things or adapt it to cyber unless we absolutely need it to. But you're going to see that cyber incident response team flavor in our documents that kind of merges and creates a perfect marriage between the FEMA doctrine and what we already think we do pretty well in cyber. So the call to action is check out the website, download our templates, see if they can help you, and let's just get started together.
Great. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come and chat to us today. Really looking forward to the event in Japan. Really looking forward to the ongoing discussions after your keynote. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you again as well, Martin.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for listening to the First Impressions podcast. I'm your host, Martin McKeay, and along with Chris John Riley, we interview people who are going to be speaking at upcoming FIRST conferences. We look forward to seeing you at the 36th annual FIRST conference this summer in Fukuoka, Japan. It'll be going on June 9th through 14th. For more information, please visit first.org.